I cooked for 12 people. Scratch that. I planned, prepped, cooked, cleaned, set the table, arranged the wine, and made sure every single person had their dietary needs met. Gluten-free lasagna for Aunt Carla. Vegan salad for my cousin's girlfriend. The roast chicken Dad still pretends is his favorite, even though he barely touches it. I didn't complain. I just worked, because that's what I always do. The daughter who has a knack for organizing, the woman who just knows how to make things happen. I was in the kitchen for 6 hours, and when it was finally done, I set the platters on the table with a quiet pride. It wasn't perfect, but it was good, thoughtful, made with care. Then Mom walked in, looked at the table, and wrinkled her nose like she'd stepped into a sewer. "We should have just ordered takeout," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "At least that would have been edible." My father chuckled. Not a word of pushback. Not even a glance in my direction. I looked around the room. 12 people eating food I made, sitting on chairs I arranged, in a home I cleaned. And not one of them stood up for me. Not one. So I did something I'd never done before. I stood up. I untied my apron. I laid it gently over the back of my chair. And I said, in the calmest voice I've ever used, "Next time, you can all pay for takeout too. Because I'm done." They laughed. They thought I was being dramatic. Aunt Carla raised her glass like it was a toast. My cousin snorted into his wine. Even my brother said, "Don't be sensitive, Lena. It's just Mom." But I wasn't being sensitive. I was being done. An hour later, after the wine was poured and the dessert was being picked at, I slipped into the spare bedroom and opened my laptop. I canceled the Airbnb for Christmas. I voided the ski resort booking I made in my name for New Year's. I retracted the deposit on the summer rental. I deleted every calendar invite, every group chat message, every itinerary I'd put together over the past 6 months. I didn't say a word. I just erased myself. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt free. It didn't start with that dinner. It started decades earlier, with a family that quietly decided my usefulness was more valuable than my presence. I was the easy child, not the rebel, not the genius, not the golden son. Just Lena, the one who didn't need much, who always offered help before being asked. When Mom was stressed about holiday hosting, I was 10 and already setting the table just right. When Dad needed someone to coordinate his retirement party, I was 23, juggling a job and still handling invitations, RSVPs, and the speech no one thanked me for. When my brother got married, they called me the backbone of the wedding. I built the timeline, dealt with vendors, smoothed over fights between the bride and Mom. They said, "You're so good at this, Lena. What would we do without you?" They meant it as a compliment, but it wasn't. It was a warning that they had no intention of ever taking care of themselves. Or me. I didn't realize the weight I carried until my 34th birthday. Not a major milestone, not one people usually make a fuss over. But I thought maybe someone would remember. Just a cake, a dinner, a card. Instead, I got a group text message from my mother addressed to the family, asking if I could plan my own birthday brunch, since you know what restaurants you like. I stared at it for a long time, and like every time before, I said yes. I booked the table, confirmed the head count, paid the deposit, and when we got there, my mom said the mimosas were too sweet, and my dad asked if I could take photos of everyone at the table, but never handed me the camera so I could be in any of them. That was the day I began pulling away. Not all at once, just small things. Stopped offering to pick up their dry cleaning when they visited. Started letting the group chats go unanswered for a few days. Took real vacations, the kind where I didn't bring my laptop or my guilt. No one noticed, because people don't notice when a chair shifts slightly out of place until they try to sit and fall. By the time that dinner came around, I already knew I was running on fumes. I already knew I was done being the invisible scaffolding for people who never asked how I was holding up. What I didn't know was how peaceful it would feel to finally stop holding them up at all. The first sign was confusion. 2 days after the dinner, my brother texted me, "Hey, did the Airbnb reservation glitch? It says it's been canceled." I didn't answer. Not right away. An hour later, he followed up. "We sent you the deposit for that already." That one made me laugh. because they hadn't sent me anything. They'd send it to the family PayPal, which I created, managed, and monitored, because no one else wanted to deal with the admin stuff. So I transferred the funds back. Every last dollar. I said nothing. The next day, my mother called. I let it ring. Then came the email. Subject line: "We need to talk about the holidays." No greeting. Just 5 paragraphs of thinly veiled blame. I know dinner didn't go the way you wanted it to, but canceling everyone's plans without notice isn't fair. People rely on you, Lena. You're the one who holds things together. We expect more maturity. Maturity. They always used words like that to keep me small. Like boundaries were tantrums. Like silence was immaturity. Like any move that didn't serve them made me the problem. I didn't reply. The calls kept coming. Not angry at first, just confused. Like someone misplaced a favorite tool and now had to consider doing something the hard way. Where are the hotel confirmations? Did you still want me to bring the pies for Thanksgiving? Lena, are you ghosting us? I wasn't ghosting them. Ghosting implies a disappearing act. This was a return to self. I'd spent so many years performing reliability, always saying yes, always patching the leaks, that when I stopped, it didn't just inconvenience them. It destabilized them. They'd made me the keeper of every tradition, every trip, every task they didn't want to manage. They thought if they pushed hard enough, I'd fall back in line. Instead, I was building something else. I had booked a solo cabin for Christmas. Just me, a wood stove, a stack of books, and silence that didn't come with strings attached. I didn't announce it, didn't post about it, didn't even put an out-of-office reply on my email. They weren't owed my explanation. They were finally getting what they always claimed they could handle. Life without me. I didn't plan a grand announcement. There was no family group message or carefully worded holiday memo. That would have given them power, and they'd only twist it. Call it dramatic. Call it emotional. Call it everything but what it truly was. Necessary. Instead, I started where it mattered most, the systems. I deleted the shared Google Drive that held every birthday spreadsheet, meal plan, packing list, and calendar I'd ever created for them. Gone. I closed the travel rewards accounts I'd opened in my name to book flights for people who never reimbursed me on time. Done. I removed myself from all automatic reservations, gift exchanges, and group chats that had somehow become my seasonal job. Unsubscribed. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just reclaimed the bandwidth they were draining from me without permission. The freedom was addictive. In the past, I used to plan for 12. 12 people. 12 expectations. 12 chances to be disappointed, overlooked, or treated like staff in my own family. Now I was planning for one. Just me. I booked my holiday solo. 3 days in a quiet cabin upstate. Wood-burning fireplace. No Wi-Fi. I bought new pajamas, fresh coffee, and a small chocolate cake that I wouldn't have to share or justify. It cost less than hosting Thanksgiving had cost me the year before, but it felt like gold. A few days before Christmas, my cousin Danny messaged me privately. "Hey, just curious, are you still doing the big gift swap this year?" No one said anything. I stared at her text for a long time. Danny wasn't cruel. She was just one of the many who had gotten comfortable with me being in charge of everyone else's joy. So I replied, "No gift swap this year. I'm sitting this one out. Hope you enjoy the holidays." She sent back a sad face emoji then. "Wait, so who's going to host?" That was the moment I knew. Not one of them had even considered stepping up. They hadn't made alternate plans. They hadn't called each other. They were all waiting for the backup generator, me, to kick in. But this time, I wasn't flipping the switch. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done playing the role they assigned me. And the most beautiful part? They'd have to learn to live without the girl who used to do everything. Because I had already started learning to live without them. The unraveling started with a group chat I forgot I hadn't left yet. It was titled Holiday Master List, a thread I created 3 years ago so everyone could track flights, menus, car rentals, and guest lists in one place. It had become the default space where the entire family gathered to ask me how things were coming along. This year, it was chaos. So, who's picking up Nana from the airport? Does anyone know how to make gluten-free stuffing? Are we still doing the cabin? Or is it Grandma's house now? Wait, is anyone even bringing dessert? 30 unread messages in 2 hours. Not one tagged me directly, but every single one read like a silent scream. Where is Lena? I didn't answer. Didn't even open the app again. Instead, I made soup in silence, played music I liked, watched the snow fall outside my cabin window, and let myself feel nothing for the first time in a long time. No pressure. No obligation. No, can you just real quick? They were finally experiencing what I had been warning them about for years. That when you treat someone's labor like a guarantee, you forget it's a choice. And I had finally made mine. On Christmas Day, I got a single email from my mother. The subject line said, "So this is how you want to be?" The body of the email? Empty. I laughed out loud. Closed it. Archived it. No response. A few hours later, my cousin Danny posted a photo on social media. It was a dining table, poorly set, slumped paper plates, one foil tray of stuffing, and a mismatched set of serving spoons. No centerpiece. No candles. No order. The caption read, "This year's Thanksgiving-style Christmas was a bit improvised, still grateful, though." The comments said it all. Wait, where's the usual spread? Did Lena not host this year? Looks like y'all missed your MVP. That one. That last one? I screenshotted it. Not to gloat. To remember. Because the truth is, I had always wondered if I was imagining it, the weight I carried, the work I did, the roles I was quietly assigned and never thanked for. But I wasn't imagining it. And I wasn't invisible. I was just used. Until I stopped letting them. And now, they were learning. Not through lectures. Not through revenge. But through a silence so unfamiliar it echoed. And I was learning too, that the world doesn't end when you stop over-functioning for people who never ask how you're doing. It just starts to get really quiet. And then, it starts to feel like peace. By New Year's Eve, the text shifted tone. Gone was the passive sarcasm. Gone were the just checking in excuses. What came next was pure panic. My brother, who once joked that I had nothing better to do than organize everyone's lives, sent me a long message. "Hey, can we talk? I think we all kind of screwed up. I didn't realize how much stuff you handled until nobody else knew what was going on. People are fighting. Mom's upset. I think she thought you'd come around." I read it twice. Then I muted the thread. Because he was right, they didn't realize. Not because they weren't capable, but because they were never forced to be. They let me carry the weight because it was easier. And now they were tripping over everything I used to silently clean up behind them. Later that week, I got a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was tight, that particular kind of calm she used when she wanted to sound composed, but couldn't quite hide the resentment. "I don't know what game you think you're playing, Lena, but you made your point. We get it. Enough now. The family needs to come together." It was almost funny. Come together? I'd spent my entire adult life trying to keep this family from falling apart. They just didn't like what it looked like without me holding the seams shut. My cousin Danny, bless her, was the only one who tried with real honesty. She messaged me the week after the holidays. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for not noticing, for not helping more. I think we all got used to you being the default, and we didn't realize how heavy that must have been." I stared at the message for a long time, and I cried, because even though it wasn't dramatic, and even though it wasn't from the people who hurt me the most, it was the first time anyone had acknowledged it. The work, the emotional labor, the exhaustion. I didn't respond right away. I wanted to sit with the moment, not to forgive, not yet, but to breathe, because something inside me had shifted. I wasn't looking for apologies anymore. I wasn't trying to fix what broke. I wasn't trying to teach them a lesson. This wasn't about revenge. It was about release. Letting go of the version of myself that always over-delivered, always smoothed the sharp edges, always took the hits so no one else had to feel the discomfort. They were feeling it now. All of it. And I was feeling something else entirely. Peace. January was the quietest month I can remember. No calls. No group messages. No last-minute favors disguised as, "We were just hoping you could." And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt untethered. I took long walks without checking my phone. I bought fresh flowers for my kitchen table, not to impress guests, but because I liked the way they looked in the morning light. I cooked meals that didn't need to impress anyone. Some of them were amazing. Some of them were burnt. I smiled either way, because finally no one was watching. And it turns out I still like taking care of things. I still keep my calendar color-coded. Still fold my laundry with care. Still send thank you notes when someone does something kind. But now, I do it for me. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I'd spent so long being the strong one that I never learned how to be supported. My therapist asked me once, "When did you learn that love had to be earned?" And I didn't have an answer, only a memory of tying my shoes faster than anyone else in kindergarten, so I wouldn't get yelled at for making us late. Only a dozen holidays spent trying to cook love into every meal, praying someone would taste it and say, "We see you." But they never did. And now, I no longer needed them to. By February, I joined a local women's hiking group. Just a dozen women, all ages, who met once a week to walk a trail and talk about anything but work, husbands, or family drama. We talked about books, about birds, about how good it feels to breathe air that doesn't come with expectations. I told them my story, bits of it, not as a victim, but as someone who made a clean exit. One of them, a woman in her 60s, nodded and said, "You didn't leave. You just came home to yourself." That stuck with me, so I wrote it down, hung it on my fridge. Every morning, I read it like a vow, and every morning I remembered. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm better. I still get messages from time to time. Birthdays. Check-ins. The occasional guilt-dipped attempt to reconnect. I don't block them, but I don't respond, because healing doesn't require confrontation. Just closure, even if you write it yourself. And I did. With every unspoken no. With every plan made without their approval. With every breath taken in peace. This is my rise. Not loud, not public, but powerful and permanent. I still have the apron. The one I took off that night when no one defended me. When the food I cooked was ridiculed and my silence was mistaken for weakness. It's folded in the back of a drawer now. Clean, untouched. Not because I'm ashamed of it, but because I keep it like a relic, a reminder of who I used to be. The girl who thought love was something you earned through labor. Who thought devotion meant doing everything alone. She's gone now, and in her place, a woman who knows the difference between being needed and being valued. Sometimes I think about the holidays they're still trying to recreate without me. I picture them gathered around paper plates, forgetting ingredients, bickering about times and rides, and who was supposed to bring what. I imagine the awkward silences, the empty seat at the table no one talks about. I don't smile at the thought. I don't need to. Because this isn't about revenge. It's about relief. The relief of walking away before you become unrecognizable to yourself. Of choosing quiet dignity over desperate approval. Of finally realizing that absence isn't always loss. Sometimes it's freedom. The cabin I stayed in that Christmas? I go back every year now. Not because I'm hiding, but because it became mine. My tradition. My rhythm. My peace. I bring books, candles, soft sweaters. I make meals for one, and they taste better than anything I ever cooked for 12 ungrateful mouths. Because now, every bite is a thank you to myself. Danny still checks in sometimes. She's different now. Quieter. Kinder. She once sent me a photo of her own solo holiday, captioned, "You help me see. I don't need to bleed for connection." Thank you. I didn't know what to say, so I just typed, "Me neither." Because that's the truth. I'm not cold. I'm not cruel. I just stopped volunteering for my own exhaustion, and they can tell their version of the story however they want. That I overreacted. That I isolated myself. That I cut everyone off. Let them, because I'll tell mine too. And mine ends with a woman sitting by a window, sipping tea, listening to the wind move through trees. Not because she's alone, but because she chose to be. And that's the loudest love I've ever given myself.
"I've already transferred the beach house to Ashley," Margaret announced, her voice dripping with satisfaction as she stood in our family living room, still wearing her funeral blacks. "Start packing." I looked up from the photo album in my lap. a collection of memories from summers spent at that very beach house. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 28, I was sitting in my childhood home the day after my father's funeral, listening to my stepmom of 5 years announce her latest power play. Thanks for letting me know, I replied calmly, turning another page in the album. My apparent lack of reaction seemed to irritate Margaret, whose perfectly manicured fingers tightened around her designer handbag. That's it? No argument? No tears? She pressed, her red lips curling into a sneer. Your father would be disappointed in your lack of fight. I met her gaze steadily. My father would be disappointed in a lot of things right now, Margaret. Her daughter Ashley chose that moment to breeze in, already wearing a beach cover-up as if she owned the place, which, according to Margaret, she now did. Mom, when can we start renovating? That old-fashioned decor has to go. Ashley wrinkled her nose at the coastal-themed decorations my mother had carefully collected before she passed away 10 years ago. It's all yours, sweetheart, Margaret cooed. Olivia was just hearing the news. She'll be out by the end of the week. I closed the album gently, placing it in my bag. The end of the week? That's generous of you, considering Dad's only been gone 24 hours. Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. Well, we need to start the renovations before summer season. Ashley has wonderful plans for the place. I'm thinking of turning it into a yoga retreat, Ashley announced, sprawling across my father's favorite armchair. All that beachfront space is wasted on just one family. I thought about the weathered deck where Dad and I had spent countless mornings fishing, the kitchen where Mom had taught me to make her famous clam chowder, the secret alcove under the stairs where I'd hidden my childhood treasures. All of it about to be transformed into a trendy retreat for Ashley's Instagram followers. The property transfer is already done, Margaret added, pulling out a folder. Signed and notarized yesterday morning before the funeral. I have power of attorney, as you know. I did know. Margaret had convinced my father to grant her power of attorney 6 months ago when his illness began to worsen. For medical decisions, she'd insisted at the time. Just in case. Would you like me to look those papers over? I asked, reaching for the folder. Given my background in real estate law. Margaret snatched the folder back. That won't be necessary. Everything's perfectly legal. Your father wanted Ashley to have the house. He told me so. I stood up, smoothing my black dress. Did he? When was this conversation? Last week, Margaret said quickly. In the hospital. Interesting. I replied, picking up my bag. Considering he was in a medically induced coma last week. Margaret's face flushed, but she recovered quickly. I meant the week before. Anyway, it's done now. We'll be heading down there this afternoon to start planning the renovations. I expect your things gone by Friday. I walked to the door, pausing only briefly. You know, Margaret, my mother always said something interesting about that house. She said it was built on stories and secrets. What's that supposed to mean? Ashley demanded, finally looking up from her phone. Nothing, I smiled. Just sharing a memory. Enjoy your yoga retreat planning. As I walked to my car, I could feel Margaret watching from the window. She probably expected me to break down, to cause a scene, to fight back immediately. She didn't know that I'd been preparing for this moment for months, ever since I'd overheard her plotting with Ashley during Dad's first hospital stay. I pulled out my phone and made 2 calls. The first to my mother's old friend, Betty, who'd been the real estate agent for the beach house for 30 years. The second to Mr. Harrison, Dad's longtime lawyer. It's time, I said simply when Mr. Harrison answered. Margaret took the bait. Already? He sounded surprised. That was faster than we expected. Did she show you the transfer papers? She waved them around but wouldn't let me see them. She claims she used the power of attorney to transfer the property to Ashley yesterday morning before the funeral. Perfect, Mr. Harrison replied, and I could hear him shuffling papers. Absolutely perfect. Shall we proceed with phase 2? I started my car, taking one last look at Margaret and Ashley through the living room window, already measuring the space for their renovations. Yes, I said firmly. It's time they learned about Mom's secret deed. The next morning, I sat in Mr. Harrison's office, watching Margaret's face turn from smug to ghostly pale as he slid the document across his desk. This, he said calmly, is the actual deed to the beach house, filed 15 years ago by Catherine Parker, Olivia's mother. Margaret snatched the paper, her hands shaking. This is impossible. John gave me power of attorney. I have the right. Power of attorney, Mr. Harrison interrupted smoothly, does not give you the authority to sell or transfer property that wasn't in John's name to begin with. What do you mean, wasn't in his name? Ashley demanded, peering over her mother's shoulder. I leaned back in my chair, the memory washing over me. I was 13 when Mom called me into this very office, already sick but still fighting. Olivia, she'd said, sometimes we have to protect the things we love most, even from the people who should protect them for us. The beach house, Mr. Harrison continued, was transferred solely to Olivia's name when she was 13, with a trust established by her mother Catherine. John was aware of this arrangement. He merely maintained lifetime residential rights. Margaret's face contorted. That's ridiculous. John would have told me. Would he? I asked softly. Like you told him about your plans to turn it into a yoga retreat. Ashley gasped, but Margaret's eyes narrowed. You were spying on us. I was visiting my dying father in the hospital when I overheard you and Ashley planning your renovation project. 3 months before he passed away, while he was fighting for his life, you were measuring his beloved beach house for yoga mats. That's not, we weren't. Ashley stammered, but Margaret cut her off. It doesn't matter. I have papers showing the transfer. Legal documents. Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses. Any transfer documents you have are void, Mrs. Parker. You attempted to transfer property that wasn't yours to transfer. In fact, he pulled out another document. Attempting to do so under power of attorney could be considered fraud. The color drained from Margaret's face. You're bluffing. Am I? I stood up, walking to the window. You know what's interesting, Margaret? My mother didn't just leave me the house. She left me her wisdom too. She warned me that someone might try to take advantage of Dad's kindness one day. That's why she set up the trust. That's why she made sure I understood property law from a young age. That's why I became a real estate attorney. Ashley slumped in her chair, her Instagram perfect posture crumbling. Mom, what did you do? Margaret's composure finally cracked. I did this for you. For us. That beach house was wasted on her. She's never even there. Because I've been caring for Dad, I said quietly. While you were planning renovations, I was driving him to chemotherapy. While Ashley was designing her yoga studio, I was organizing his medications. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. Mrs. Parker, you have 2 options. You can either sign this document acknowledging the void transfer and agreeing to vacate any claims to the property, or we can pursue legal action regarding the fraudulent transfer attempt. Margaret's hand shook as she reached for the document. This isn't fair, she whispered. No, I agreed. It wasn't fair when you rushed to transfer property the day before my father's funeral. It wasn't fair when you gave me 3 days to clear out my family's memories. Life isn't fair, Margaret. That's why we have laws. As Margaret signed the document, her signature barely legible, Ashley stood up abruptly. I'm sorry, she blurted out. I didn't. I knew Mom was planning something, but I didn't know about the fraud part. I really looked at her, and saw something genuine in her expression for the first time. The beach house was never about the property value, Ashley. It's about memories. It's about family, real family. Which is exactly why it should stay in the family, Margaret interjected, finding her voice again. It is staying in the family, I replied firmly. My family, the one that built it, loved it, and protected it. Mr. Harrison collected the signed documents, making copies for everyone present. I believe our business here is concluded, he said. Mrs. Parker, Ms. Ashley, I trust you'll cancel any renovation plans you've made. As they stood to leave, Margaret turned back, her eyes cold. You think you're so clever, don't you? Just like your mother. I smiled, touching the old photo album in my bag. Thank you, Margaret. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. The following weekend, I stood on the weathered deck of the beach house, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in shades of pink and gold. The salt air carried memories of morning fishing with Dad, of Mom's laughter echoing across the waves, of a childhood spent building sandcastles and collecting seashells. Betty, our longtime family friend and real estate agent, joined me with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. Your mother would be proud, she said, handing me one. She always said you had her spirit and your father's heart. I wish Dad had seen through Margaret's act sooner. I sighed, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. He was so lonely after Mom died. He just wanted to believe in love again. John was a good man with a trusting heart, Betty nodded. But Catherine? She was a force of nature, smart as a whip, always thinking 10 steps ahead. I smiled, remembering how Mom had sat me down in this very spot, explaining why she was putting the house in my name. Sometimes she'd said, "Love means protecting people from their own blind spots." The screen door creaked, and Ashley stepped out tentatively. I'd been surprised to receive her text asking to meet, but something in her message felt genuine. "I didn't know if you'd actually be here," she said, hovering uncertainly by the door. "I come every weekend now," I replied, turning to face her. "Would you like some coffee?" She nodded, and Betty quietly slipped inside to get another mug, leaving us alone with the sound of crashing waves. "I brought something," Ashley said, pulling a folder from her bag. "Mom doesn't know I'm here, but I found these when we were packing up our things from the house." Inside the folder were photographs, dozens of them. Dad in his hospital bed, smiling despite the pain, holding my hand as I read to him. Me adjusting his pillows, bringing him meals, sitting vigil during his worst nights. "The nurses took them," Ashley explained softly. "They gave them to Mom, but she never showed them to me. I didn't know. I knew you visited him. But I didn't realize." "Every day," I said quietly. "I was there every single day." While we were shopping for yoga mats and planning beach retreats, she whispered, voice cracking, "God, we were awful." I studied her face, seeing real remorse there. "You were following your mother's lead." "That's no excuse," she shook her head. "I was so caught up in Mom's plans, in the idea of having this amazing beach property. I never stopped to think about what this place really means." Betty returned with coffee for Ashley, then tactfully made herself scarce again. We stood in silence for a while, watching the waves. "Can I show you something?" I asked finally. Ashley nodded, and I led her to the small alcove under the stairs. Opening a hidden panel, I pulled out an old tin box. "Mom's treasure chest," I explained, opening it. Inside were seashells, each labeled with dates and memories. Every shell marks a special moment. "This one's from the day Dad taught me to swim." "This one's from Mom's last beach walk before she got too sick." "This one." I pulled out a perfectly formed sand dollar. "This one's from the day they got married." Ashley touched the shells gently, reverently. I had no idea there was so much history here. "That's the thing about this house," I said, replacing the box carefully. "It's not just walls and windows. It's a keeper of memories." "I'm sorry," Ashley said suddenly, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry we tried to take this from you. I'm sorry I didn't stop Mom. I'm sorry I didn't know Dad better." I touched her arm gently. "You know, the house may be in my name, but the memories it holds belong to anyone who truly wants to cherish them." She looked at me, understanding dawning in her eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying he'd like to know your father better, really know him. You're welcome to visit, not as a yoga instructor, but as his daughter. We could share stories, make new memories, even after everything we did." "Sometimes," I said, echoing my mother's words, "love means giving people a chance to see their own blind spots." As the morning sun climbed higher, Ashley and I sat on the deck, sharing coffee and stories. She told me about her own memories of Dad, fewer but still precious. I shared more about his final months, the quiet conversations, the peaceful moments between the pain. Betty joined us later, bringing out Mom's famous clam chowder recipe and offering to teach us both how to make it. As we chopped vegetables and stirred the pot, I could almost hear Mom's laughter mixing with the sound of the waves, feel Dad's presence in the warm sea breeze. Margaret might have tried to take this place from me, but she never understood its true value. The beach house wasn't just property to be claimed or renovated. It was a sanctuary of memories, a keeper of stories, a bridge between past and future. And now, unexpectedly, it had become something else. A place of healing, of new beginnings, of second chances, just as Mom would have wanted it to be.